Welcome to the Caplaner podcast, where we dive into the dynamic world of private capital markets. Whether you're new to private market investing or a seasoned professional, this podcast unpacks the latest trends, insights, and opportunities shaping the industry. Featuring expert guests and deep discussions, Caplaner is your go-to resource for staying informed and inspired. Hello, and welcome to the Caplander podcast. My name is Morgan. I'm here with Jody, and Felix Hartmann is joining us too. Hi, Felix.
Hey, Morgan. Hey, Jody. So good to see you. Thanks for having
Are
me.
you just down the street from me in Miami right now?
No, I'm currently in Los Angeles, so I
Oh,
split time
got it.
50-50, Miami, LA. I just moved into this room, so that's why it's so empty and barren, but yes.
Well, you work in crypto and you're a managing general partner of your own investment firm. So, for those who are not familiar, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure, 100%. So my name is Felix Hartmann. I started my firm about 7 years ago, back in 2018. So this was, long before. Now everybody believes in crypto. Crypto has become quite a hot topic on Wall Street with tokenization of assets, stable coins, and so forth. And so back in 2018, right after the ICO mania, I launched one of the first crypto hedge funds in the world. We were probably, I think, one of the first 100 to incorporate at the time.
For somebody who doesn't know, can you say
Yeah.
like digital assets, crypto, Bitcoin, like
Yeah,
give it
break it down
to,
a little bit.
yeah, what is it for somebody who doesn't know?
So all these terms that we hear, blockchain, crypto, digital assets, I would like to say every 3 years or so after there's a boom and bust cycle, crypto has to reinvent itself. And so we give ourselves a new name. But they all virtually mean the same thing, right? So what we're talking about is tokens that live on the blockchain. Bitcoin is the oldest of them all, originated in 2008, 2009 after the banking crisis.
It's a currency, right?
Right. So Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. Now, there are a lot of other tokens, like, for example, Ethereum, Solana, and so forth. They're really more computing networks that are global, where, for example, if you want to write this piece of code that just lives everywhere, nowhere at the same time that anybody can use, that's open source, like you can build on those blockchains. And every time
Right.
somebody
It's
will
like
use a piece of software
removing the
global.
middleman, right? It's like supposed to take out the middleman, supposed to take out the banks and things like that.
Correct. I mean, any industry that you can think of can probably be decentralized. So there's decentralized finance, there's decentralized gaming, there's decentralized infrastructure networks. So any piece of life really where you think there's a middleman that's currently making the world more inefficient can be, utilized with blockchain.
Removed. Right. They want them out, make it more efficient, make it more open. So, how did you decide to start a crypto hedge fund?
Yeah. So I was trading, crypto in my own account at the time. I did it really successfully. Ultimately, I had a consulting client that wanted to tokenize green energy, essentially. And so they hired me as a consultant to help them work on this security token project. And as I showed them my track record, they said, why don't we give you like $10 million to start trading for us? And at the time, I was only 23 years old. 23 years old. And so that was like massive numbers for me at the time. And
Massive
so
numbers. I mean, you think about it today that many funds are having a hard time raising capital, and
for
here
sure,
somebody was just throwing it at you.
it didn't, and that's exactly what it felt like. So at that moment, I thought, you have no clue how to, like, essentially, I didn't study finance. My parents didn't come with finance. And so then I literally went home and Googled how to start a hedge fund. And so, this pre-chat GPT, I just read my way through. I found three
Right.
lawyers at the time that touched crypto law. I
It.
talked to them. I liked one. I was like, sending you a check. We're incorporating Hartman Capital. Um, Now, the silver lining is that investor never came through because it took us 6 months to get everything set up, banking, audits, and so forth. And Bitcoin would crash from 20K down to 10K. And so I would have to start very, very humbly with like $200,000, one man show out of my bedroom. And then, grow and scale it up over the subsequent years to now roughly 50 million in assets.
Right. It's crazy to have seen a whole industry coming from its infancy. I mean, I feel like I witnessed this with the biotech arena in the private markets, private companies that were life science oriented. And now you can see that it's a stable part of the innovation ecosystem. And so
Mm.
is crypto.
100%. I love those kind of industries because when they first start, when they're so nascent, they're also so pure. Where everybody that's working in it usually is in it for the right reasons. Like they want to innovate, they want to build something, they want to challenge a norm. Like biotech might be the medical field, or even the question of like why do we die, right? Which I
Well,
think
they're
now is
really looking at patient care and then, like you're saying, is it moving things further faster because big pharma doesn't have the flexibility. So there's a lot of I hadn't really thought of this until our conversation, but there's a lot of parallels and there's a lot of purity for it because you're
Mhm.
trying to in the life sciences, obviously it's patient care and innovation, but yours still has that whole overtone of trying to expedite and take out the middle person for argument's sake, and get something done faster that is helping on the greater good.
Yeah, 100%. And to me, that's kind of warped into my entire firm thesis where we're frontier tech investor, not just we started with crypto, but really we're frontier tech investor where I try to identify what are these new industries that are really visionary driven, where you have idealists, visionaries that are building this, even when nobody else believes in it, because I think that's where you get the biggest outsized returns. Because ultimately they're operating a blue ocean. They're in this discovering and developing entire new segments, right? So they're not competing, right? They're
Right.
really building a whole new
Yeah,
world,
they
so to
just
say.
they wanna
The
be the
same way that
first one there and make it so big that the multiple is 10x, 20x, even as much as possible.
100%, right? And I mean, we see this now with a company like Coinbase. People might have thought, oh, this was a crypto exchange,
Right.
but now you look at it in 2025, and it really feels more like this is going to be the new bank, where like Gen Z and Gen Alpha, they might get a Coinbase account before they get a JP Morgan account.
So you spend your time between Florida, it sounds like Miami, and then
Miami.
right, between Miami, which I think is like a separate country, separate of Florida, but
That's fair.
between Miami and then Los Angeles, and when I was combing through your LinkedIn account, it looked like you had also been in Austin at some point, so you've kind of been in all of these tech hubs. Where do you see as the biggest differences doing business in Los Angeles versus Miami and kind of culture-wise? I mean, Florida and Miami in particular is such a hot spot now for private markets.
So I really just look at it as like West Coast and East Coast because when I'm in Miami, I go to New York maybe 20 times a year. Like sometimes it's even the same day trip where I leave the house at
Right,
6 a.m. I come
easy,
back at
right, the
10
same
p.m.
time zones, easy.
Right. And everything's accessible. Like if there's an important enough meeting in New York, I can take it the same day coming from Miami because it's 2 hour flight, 3 hour flight, right? Same thing goes with Los Angeles. You're a 1 hour flight away from San Francisco. These are really the hubs that I look at is like Miami, New York, and LASF. And so I think Miami, New York really is more so on the capital market side. Like if you want to raise money, if you're interested in liquid strategies, like for example, crypto, that's where you're going to get attention. When it comes to venture capital, though, like it still is hands down, Silicon Valley, LA, like really like California, because even in our portfolio, I would argue something to the tune of 40+% of the founders still are California based.
I know, but
So
this
it's
has come up. How much do you think it's important that you actually meet with your founders and know them, or do you think it really doesn't matter?
No, I'm still a huge proponent of in-person meetings, so I try to get at least like one in-person meeting in before we invest because there's so many subtleties that you can only pick up in like an unscripted, ideally long form meeting where it's not like a Zoom call is like 30 minutes, you go through due diligence. Ideally, maybe I take them for dinner or lunch and then you see them going off the pitch, right? They talk maybe about their personal life and you identify like what are they actually driven by? What's important to them, right?
Well, we no, we just ran this whole survey for AI for private companies to find out what's happening, if there's talent being replaced by AI, and then we are just now publishing the results of having done that in venture. And really, it's not happening in venture as fast, and it's exactly for the reasons that you just said. At these top levels of job, if you're an investment professional or you're a managing general partner, your best skill set is that you can sense with a founder, someone who's capable, someone who's driven and ambitious, someone who's got that like boil the oceans mentality, who has that sort of secret sauce. And you're not going to get that by replacing that with AI.
I have a fun
A
question for
hundred
you,
percent.
Felix. What's been one of your biggest red flags when you're sitting with a founder deciding whether to invest with them or not?
I think it's two things. It's ethics and marshmallow test essentially. Like, are you able to put off, um, reward for a long time, right? So, like, if I see that
What's
somebody
the
really,
marshmallow test? I want to know what that is. I like
oh,
that.
if you haven't heard of this, so
Going to
there's
be
there
the
was this
tagline here. Felix and the marshmallow test.
old study either from Stanford or Harvard where essentially they would have a study with kids at a young age, called maybe like 6 years old, right? They come in, they say, okay, you can either have a marshmallow today, or you can have two tomorrow. And then they essentially followed up with these kids, like let's say 20 years later. And so, like, how did those perform that were able to put up a reward today and choose two tomorrow? And they were like wildly outperforming, the other
Right.
cohort.
People who have the optics to know that a little bit of patience will give you a lot of bit of
Right.
benefit.
100%, right? And so I think this is important in venture. Why? Because you make your money in venture when you have a company that can return 20x, 100x, and so forth. But the founder that folds after, like they get a nice offer in the door, let's say I invest at 10 million valuation and then they get an offer in for 30 million. Well, the founder still owns 80%. So for him, he can ride up into the sunset, capture, call it 20 million plus. He's good, right? But like he needs to be in it for more than just a quick reward, because for this to become a unicorn, I think best example is Meta, right? Facebook was offered, I think, over $1 billion. And his entire board said, Zuck's entire board said, like, take it. Even Peter Thiel said, like, we should take this. This is a great offer, right? Zuckerberg said, no. I mean, we have a way bigger ambitions like this. We're so far from being done. And today it's $1 trillion company, meaning there was still 1,000x afterwards to come. Now, of course, sometimes it's the right time to sell. There's also famous cases where a company, ended up failing. But still, when it comes to find the right founders, I think it's one, like having this wild, big ambition, but also being able to follow it up with the actions. And then the second piece, again, is the ethics, where I think founders that try to, win in small, irrelevant battles, like, for example, being fishy about negotiation tactics, like offering one VC this deal, one angel this deal, and so forth, to
Right.
maximize their ownership by like 0.5%. Those small actions usually reflect in the big picture as well.
We
Right.
say this in everything that we publish. I mean, Morgan and I were just reading our press release that went out because we launched our platform upgrades where you can look at maps and
Yep.
compensation in different geographies to see what's going on, and also some of our other upgrades to our platform for both private companies and investment firms. And the number one thing we always say about Thelander is that it's trustworthy, the data has integrity, in addition to being real time. But after almost 30 years of doing that, we stand by it. And that's really important because not everybody's data is quality. And if you cut a corner or you make a mistake, that's bad. You can never overlook that. It negates everything
It
else.
sticks with somebody. Yeah. It leaves a bad taste, that's for sure.
Percent. I mean, I've seen the best founders that we have. They're just incredibly resourceful, right? Like, so they're not trying to maximize their own salary while they're CEO. In fact, they might even put some of their own money to work, and they always put the team first. They take to put the customers first, and like it's their life's mission, right? They're not worried about extraction at all, right? They're worried about they know that, like, look, if I win, if I deliver something big here, like, I'll be taken care of, and I think that's an important mindset to have.
Felix, do you have work-life balance like the founders that you want? Or also, obviously, you're very motivated by business, but with all your traveling around, where do you consider home?
Where do I consider home? Well, I think both LA and Miami, they're home to me. It's like I have a girlfriend, me and my partner. We wherever we are, we can make a place our home. And so, yeah, I mean, I think I'm very big on routine. Being able to just like get settled in a place. Of course, it's not always easy with travel, but to me, that's like simple routines, like whether it's health and fitness, whether that is having a good workspace, having creative time, and so forth. But I am still in the workaholic phase of my life, that working those 12 to 16 hour days.
Well, you started your firm when you were 23 years old, so I don't think that's necessarily the norm and the success you've obviously have had. What if you were to go back, I just asked this to Sue Siegel, who joined us last week for our podcast too, but if you were to go back and say to your 23-year-old self, starting, knowing what you know now, is there anything that you would tell yourself to do differently? Or is there something
Yeah,
that
hindsight being 2020, or lessons you've
right,
learned now that you have a little bit of perspective, and
totally.
and you probably practice and understand exactly what you said, and that good things don't necessarily come fast. It can take time and it can be a long game. Even sometimes it gets tedious or hard, but you got to stay the course.
Um, it's tough because everything is kind of like butterfly effect. So like in hindsight, you say like you should have done this differently, but maybe the alternative would have been like way worse. So two or three things that come top of mind is, and one of those I actually mentioned recently on a different podcast, which is um, it's you have to play within the framework of the world. And so the framework of the world, unfortunately, when it comes to investing is people love delegating responsibility. And what that means, people love checking boxes, right? So make it easy for people to check boxes. And so I'm a rather unusual case, right? So because like I started my firm like literally out of college, right? I I never worked at Goldman. I never worked at
Yeah, just showed you
BlackRock
though,
or
that's a lot of what you said. You mentioned Peter Thiel, and he was the guy who was trying to offer people to skip going to college if they had a
right.
great idea. So very off the, off the traditional trajectory.
Yeah, but I find now it's like to a question like if I had to do something different, I would probably say like, hey, put in like just 1 to 2 years to maximize logo collection, so that I can say I'm X this X this X this, throw it on the deck, and then it is what it is. The lazy fund of funds, the lazy family offices that essentially are just looking to check boxes. They will see, yes, he worked there. He's gotten this,
Yeah.
da 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 da. Because this is something I can't really go back to, right? Because like I've got my firm now. I've got plenty to do. I'm not going to work for anybody else. Now, on the flip side, you could say, well, there's plenty of people that did go that path, and then they got stuck there, and at age 30, they are not running a $50 million firm. So I think there's pros and cons because there's a lot of like hands-on, tangible experience I got that others would never get from being an employee versus an operator themselves.
So you've
Um,
only been someone who's worked on for yourself, basically.
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because Morgan, at the end of the day, despite the fact that you did internships at PitchBook and you worked for a healthcare accelerator, I remember in Chicago, HealthBox, really coming into the Thielander business, you've never had a boss other than your mother.
I definitely have a boss, there's no doubt. It's BOSS with $2 as the S's, that's for sure.
Yeah. CEOOOOO, right?
Right, lot of
You're the
zeros.
COOOOO, right?
It's true. I mean, I don't think it's read something last night actually in a newsletter, and it said that the mindset of being a CEO of your own life is really what if that is where people are the most successful, where you take charge of what's going on around you, and it sounds like you learned that incredibly young, and you also applied that not only to your personal life, but then also to your business.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think everything is for the taking in this life. Like we create these barriers where we think I can't do this until why. And I think the thing that worked in my favor actually, I think the real reason why you see so many young people succeed in startups is because of the naivete, right? Like they don't know yet what they don't know. So they think like when I was 22, I thought like I could start a hedge fund, right? By the time you're 30, like if it was today, I might not even have done it because like in my head, then I would say like, well, I see how challenging it is. Or I see like these people tried, it didn't work. You find all the reasons why not to do it. But when you're 22 years old, 23 years old, you don't think anything could destroy you. Like you think you're mortal. You think you're the best. And so
Well, some people actually are scared. So this is really what I really impressed with you is that because we had a coach on who had come from the Israeli military. She's really impressive, Karen Eldad, and she said, some people have anxiety and are nervous or they are concerned, and then there are people like me, and it sounds like someone like you, where I go to sleep at night and I can't wait to wake up the next morning because there's
yeah.
so many great things to do, and I'm really excited. So as you look forward, if you're young in your career, so to speak. You're not a senior states person yet. What's on the horizon? What are you most excited about?
Look, I think we're going into an extremely incredible time, like just like human history in general, right? Like be the fact that we're witnessing the advent of like AI, the way it's currently happening, right? And that's at the early stages, right? Whether it's AI, whether that's longevity, like there's the first movements now about which used to be tinfoil heads, like transhumanism. Now, Brian Johnson, don't die, right? Like we're going towards the direction where we might live longer, better, healthier. Maybe at some point in our lifetime, death is a choice, right? AI, we might not actually be working traditional jobs anymore. There might be kind of a post-work future within our lifetime. And so to me, the most exciting thing is that I get to be like in my own way at the helm of that, like find the companies that will define that future. And today in a small way, with a $50 million fund where like I can handpick the founders that I believe will play a big role. But over time, again, taking a 30-year lens, 40-year lens or so, I do very much think and look forward to kind of like steering this whole movement in a big way, because I think by the time I've compounded 3 decades of this, I should be in a pretty meaningful position to um, guide, these
Right.
decisions and movements in a meaningful way.
So that do you think you were the one marshmallow or the two marshmallow kid?
Maybe 10, I'll probably just every day, like, come back,
I think so
come
too. I
back
was
for more,
thinking a
come back.
whole damn bag of marshmallows, so
Probably
me too.
too full with it, then I'm too afraid to eat them, and then I got all these marshmallows, I'm like, "What am I gonna do with them?" But, um
Well, on that note, we're gonna wind up. Felix, such a pleasure, and I hope to see you here in the neighborhood in Miami. Let me know
yeah,
when you're in town, and we can get together in person so we can enjoy, a little bit of one-on-one time.
love that. Thank you so much for having me on, both of you.